My name is Emily and I'm 28 years old, and I'm about to tell you the most twisted story you'll ever hear about family betrayal. Picture this. I'm 18, fresh out of high school, working double shifts at a diner to save for college. I come home one night, exhausted, keys jingling as I unlock our apartment door. The living room is dark except for the flickering TV, casting eerie shadows on the walls. My mother, Carmen, is sitting there with two men I've never seen before. One is tall with gold teeth, the other shorter with scars running down his neck like a roadmap of violence. "Emily, baby, come sit down," Carmen says, her voice shaking. Her hands are trembling and I can see the telltale signs: dilated pupils, sweating, the desperate look of someone who needs their next fix badly. "What's going on, Mama?" I ask, my stomach already twisting into knots. The tall man with gold teeth speaks up. "Your mama owes us $15,000. She's been buying on credit for months." His voice is cold, matter-of-fact, like he's discussing the weather. My world tilts. 15,000? We don't have 1,500. "But here's the thing," Carmen says, avoiding my eyes. "They got a proposition. You work for them for 2 years and the debt's cleared." The room goes silent except for the distant sound of sirens wailing through the night. I realize in that moment that my own mother just sold me to drug dealers. Work for them. My voice cracks like glass hitting concrete. "What kind of work?" The scarred man finally speaks, his voice like gravel in a blender. "Nothing you can't handle, pretty girl. Running packages, keeping lookout, being our eyes and ears in certain neighborhoods." I look at Carmen, searching her face for any sign that this is a nightmare I'll wake up from. Instead, I see guilt mixed with desperate relief. She's already counting the debt as paid. "Mama, you can't be serious. I got accepted to community college. I start in 2 months. College ain't going nowhere," she snaps, finally meeting my eyes. "But Rico here will put a bullet in both our heads if I don't pay what I owe." Rico, the one with gold teeth, nods slowly. "Your mama's got expensive habits. Been fronting her product for 8 months now. Time to collect." I remember the exact moment my childhood died. It wasn't gradual. It was instant, like a light switch flipping off. The woman who used to read me bedtime stories, who bandaged my scraped knees, who promised she'd never let anyone hurt me, had just handed me over to criminals. 2 years, Rico continues, and you both walk away clean. Try to run and things get messy for everyone you care about. Carmen reaches for my hand but I pull away. "Baby, it's just temporary. You'll be helping family." Family. The word tastes like poison in my mouth. The next morning feels like stepping into someone else's nightmare. Rico picks me up in a black sedan with tinted windows, the leather seats cold against my skin despite the summer heat. "First rule," he says, adjusting his rearview mirror to watch me, "you don't talk to nobody about this arrangement. Not friends, not teachers, nobody." "What about my job at the diner?" "You quit yesterday." "I already called them." My heart sinks. That job was my lifeline, my path to independence. Now I'm completely dependent on these people. He drives me to a warehouse district where the buildings look like broken teeth against the sky. Inside one of them, I meet the rest of the crew. There's Dante, barely older than me but with eyes that have seen too much. Maya, a girl who couldn't be more than 16, counting stacks of cash with the precision of a bank teller. And Tomas, the operations enforcer, whose presence makes the temperature in the room drop 10 degrees. "Fresh meat," Maya says without looking up. "Hope you last longer than the last girl." "What happened to the last girl?" I ask. The room goes quiet. Dante shakes his head slightly, a warning I don't understand yet. "She forgot the rules," Rico says simply. "Let's make sure you remember them." He hands me a burner phone and a backpack. "Your first delivery. Address is programmed in. Take the blue line, get off at the 3rd stop, walk 2 blocks east. Hand the package to whoever says, 'birthday present.' Don't open it, don't ask questions." I hold the backpack, feeling its weight. My hands are shaking so badly I can barely grip the straps. 6 months in, I've become someone I don't recognize. The girl who dreamed of college is gone, replaced by someone who knows the drug distribution routes better than bus schedules. I've learned to read people's desperation in their eyes, to spot undercover cops from 3 blocks away, to sleep with one eye open. The breaking point comes on a Tuesday night in December. I'm standing in an alley behind a convenience store waiting for a pickup when I see her. Carmen. My own mother, stumbling through the snow, clearly high, approaching one of Rico's competitors. I watch her beg, offering to trade information about Rico's operation for drugs. The competitor, a snake named Vince, listens with interest. "You know," Vince says, his breath visible in the cold air, "your daughter's been real useful to Rico. Maybe she'd be more useful to me." Carmen doesn't hesitate. "Whatever you need." There it is. She's willing to sell me again. I step out of the shadows. "Mama." Her face goes white as fresh snow. "Emily, baby, what are you doing here?" "The same thing you are, apparently. Surviving your choices." Vince grins like a predator spotting prey. "This is perfect timing. Rico's been getting too comfortable in our territory." In that moment, I realize something crucial. I'm not just a victim anymore. I know things. Valuable things. Names, routes, schedules, weaknesses. Information that could destroy everyone who destroyed my life. "You want information about Rico?" I say, my voice steady for the first time in months. "Let's talk." But I'm not planning to betray Rico for Vince. I'm planning something much bigger. Working for Rico taught me more than any college course ever could. Just not the kind of education I'd planned. I learned that power isn't about money or muscles. It's about information and timing. I learned that everyone has a price and everyone has a weakness. Most importantly, I learned that the game isn't about choosing sides. It's about writing the rules. Over the next year, I played my role perfectly. Sweet, scared Emily who just wanted to survive. But behind that mask, I was studying. Learning Rico's business inside and out. Memorizing his contacts, his methods, his territories. I watched how he negotiated, how he intimidated, how he inspired both loyalty and fear. I also started building my own network. Dante became an unlikely ally. Turns out he was working to pay off his sister's medical bills. Maya was saving money to get her little brother out of foster care. Even Tomas had a story. Military veteran who couldn't find work, fell into Rico's orbit to keep his elderly mother in assisted living. None of us wanted to be there. We were all victims of circumstances that felt bigger than ourselves. One night, after a particularly brutal collection run where Rico made an example of a dealer who'd been skimming, I saw my opportunity. Rico was high on his own supply and getting sloppy. He started trusting me with bigger responsibilities, more sensitive information. "You know what, Emily?" he said one evening, counting money at his desk. "You got potential. Maybe when your time's up, you stay on voluntarily. Build something real here." I smiled and nodded, all while mentally cataloging every detail of his operation for my own plans. 2 years felt like a lifetime, but my contract with Rico was finally ending. The night before my freedom, he threw a party at the warehouse. Everyone was there: suppliers, distributors, enforcers. Rico was celebrating keeping another soldier in his army because in his mind, where else could I go? I'd been planning this moment for months. During the party, I slipped away and made 3 phone calls. First to Detective Lisa Murphy, a narcotics officer I'd researched extensively. Second to Agent James Crawford from the DA task force that had been trying to crack Rico's operation for years. Third to Marcus Williams, an investigative journalist who specialized in exposing drug trafficking networks. I didn't just give them Rico. I gave them everything. Names, dates, locations, financial records I'd photographed, distribution routes I'd memorized. But most importantly, I gave them Carmen. See, while I was learning Rico's business, I was also tracking my mother. She'd escalated from user to dealer to informant, playing all sides. She'd been feeding information to 3 different crews, including the ones that wanted Rico dead. "You sure about this?" Detective Murphy asked during our clandestine meeting in a parking garage. "Your own mother?" "My mother sold me," I replied, sliding a manila envelope across the hood of her car. "I'm just returning the favor." The envelope contained photos of Carmen making deals, recordings of her conversations with rival dealers, and documentation of her multiple betrayals. Enough evidence to put her away for decades. "This is impressive work," Murphy said, flipping through the contents. "You ever think about law enforcement?" I had. Actually, I'd been thinking about a lot of things. The bust went down like something out of a movie, except this was real life and the stakes were my freedom. I wore a wire for 3 weeks, recording conversations, documenting transactions, building an airtight case against everyone who'd participated in my enslavement. The irony wasn't lost on me that Rico trusted me enough to handle his most sensitive business right up until the end. On the final night, he had me delivering payments to corrupt cops who'd been looking the other way. Their shock when federal agents surrounded them was almost worth 2 years of my life. Almost. Carmen was arrested at 3 a.m., caught in bed with 10 kilos of uncut product and enough cash to choke a horse. The look on her face when she realized I'd been the one feeding information to law enforcement was something I'll never forget. Betrayal, rage, and underneath it all, a flicker of what might have been pride. "How could you do this to your own mother?" she screamed as they cuffed her in front of our apartment building. "I learned from the best," I replied, watching as they loaded her into the police car. Rico got life without parole. His entire network crumbled in one night, dozens of arrests, millions in assets seized. The judge commended my courage during the sentencing hearing, calling me an instrumental witness whose bravery helped dismantle a dangerous criminal organization. But the real satisfaction came from something else entirely. While building my case against Rico, I'd been building something for myself. College applications, scholarship essays, financial aid forms. I'd been planning my real freedom, not just escape from one trap into another. 3 months after the trials ended, I got my acceptance letter. College was like breathing fresh air after being underwater for years. I threw myself into my studies with the intensity of someone who knew exactly how valuable education was. Criminal justice major, psychology minor. I wanted to understand the system that had failed me and learn how to fix it. My professors didn't know my background at first. I was just another student working multiple jobs to pay tuition. But my papers were different. When we studied organized crime, I wrote about it from the inside. When we analyzed criminal psychology, I had first-hand observations about how desperation drives people to compromise their values. Dr. Patricia Hendricks, my criminology professor, called me into her office after reading my midterm paper on drug trafficking hierarchies. "This is graduate-level analysis," she said, studying me over her glasses. "Where did you get such detailed insights into criminal operations?" I'd practiced this conversation in my head dozens of times. Personal experience. I spent 2 years inside a drug operation as an unwilling participant. I helped bring it down. Her expression shifted from academic curiosity to human compassion. "Have you considered law school? With your background and insights, you could make a real difference in criminal justice reform." That conversation changed everything. Law school became my new goal, my way of transforming my trauma into power. But first, I had unfinished business. Carmen was serving an 8-year sentence in a federal prison 3 hours away. I hadn't spoken to her since her arrest, but I'd been monitoring her situation through legal channels. She'd been denied parole twice, her sentence extended due to disciplinary issues inside. Now, with my degree almost complete and law school applications submitted, it was time for a conversation that was 10 years overdue. The federal correctional facility looked exactly like you'd expect. Razor wire, concrete walls, guards who'd seen everything twice. I signed in as Carmen Washington's daughter, submitted to searches, and waited in a sterile visiting room that smelled of disinfectant and broken dreams. When they brought her out, I barely recognized the woman who'd raised me. Prison had aged her 20 years in 10. Her hair was gray, her face gaunt, her once bright eyes now dull and hollow. She wore the standard orange jumpsuit like a uniform of defeat. "Emily." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Baby, you came." I sat across from her at the metal table, my hands folded, my expression neutral. 2 guards watched from the corners of the room. "I graduated yesterday," I said without preamble. "Summa cum laude. Full scholarship to law school starting in the fall." Carmen's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so proud of you, baby. I always knew you were special." "Did you? Because I remember you thinking I was worth $15,000 in drug debt." The words hit her like a physical blow. She flinched, her shoulders sagging. "Emily, please. I was sick. The addiction." "Stop." My voice cut through her excuses like a blade. "I didn't come here for apologies. I came here to tell you about the life I built after you destroyed the one I had planned." For the next hour, I told her everything. College, internships, the mentor relationships I'd built, the scholarships I'd earned, the law school acceptance letters. I painted a picture of success that she could never claim credit for. "That's wonderful," she whispered. "Maybe when I get out." "When you get out," I interrupted, "I'll be a lawyer. And I'll be ready." Carmen's release date was still 3 years away, but I'd been preparing for it since my first day of law school. My thesis project was about family betrayal in criminal enterprises, specifically focusing on cases where parents exploited their children for financial gain. Guess who my primary case study was? By the time I graduated law school, I had passed the bar exam and landed a position with the district attorney's office. My specialization? Crimes against children and family exploitation cases. My supervising attorney, Sarah Brooks, was impressed by my dedication to these cases. "You handle these situations with unusual insight," she observed during one of our case reviews. "It's like you understand the psychology from the inside." I did. Every case I prosecuted, every family I helped seek justice, was practice for the main event. Carmen had been writing me letters from prison, dozens of them. Letters full of apologies, promises to change, plans for when she got out. Letters talking about how we could be a real family again, how she'd learned her lesson, how prison had made her see the error of her ways. I kept every single letter. Not because I forgave her, but because I was documenting a pattern of manipulation that would be useful later. The letters revealed something crucial. Carmen still didn't understand what she'd done wrong. She thought her crime was the drug debt, not selling her own daughter. She thought prison was her punishment, not just the beginning of her consequences. 3 months before her scheduled release, I received a letter that made my blood run cold. Carmen had been in contact with some of Rico's old associates, the ones who hadn't been caught in the bust. She was planning to get back into the drug trade upon release, convinced that her experience made her valuable. That's when I knew it was time to implement the final phase of my plan. Carmen walked out of federal prison on a Tuesday morning in October, wearing the same clothes she'd been arrested in 10 years earlier. They hung loose on her diminished frame, making her look like a child playing dress-up in adult clothes. I was waiting for her in the parking lot, leaning against a brand new BMW. 10 years of hard work, smart investments, and careful planning had paid off. I looked nothing like the scared 18-year-old she'd sold. "Emily." She ran toward me, arms outstretched, tears streaming down her face. "Hi baby, look at you. Look how successful you are." I didn't move from my position against the car. "Hello, Carmen." The use of her first name instead of Mama stopped her in her tracks. "What's wrong, baby? Aren't you happy to see me?" "I'm here because we need to talk." "Get in the car." The drive to the restaurant I'd chosen was silent except for Carmen's nervous chatter about prison life, about how much she'd missed me, about her plans for the future. I let her talk, recording everything on my phone. The restaurant was upscale, the kind of place where conversations were private and the staff minded their own business. I'd chosen a corner booth where we could speak freely. "This is fancy," Carmen said, looking around nervously. "You must be doing real well for yourself." "I am. No thanks to you." I slid a folder across the table. "Before we continue this conversation, I need you to understand something. I know about your plans." Carmen's face went pale as she opened the folder and saw photographs of her meeting with Vince's crew just days before her release. Phone records, bank account numbers, a complete dossier of her intended return to drug dealing. "How did you?" "I'm a prosecutor now, Carmen. This is what I do. You've been watching me." Carmen's voice was barely audible, her hands shaking as she flipped through the evidence of her post-prison activities. "For 10 years, I confirmed. Every letter you wrote, every phone call you made, every person you contacted. I've been building a case." Carmen looked up at me with a mixture of fear and confusion. "A case? Baby, what are you talking about?" I leaned forward, my voice steady and professional. "Human trafficking. Child exploitation. Conspiracy to distribute narcotics using a minor. Accessory to kidnapping." Should I continue? But the statute of limitations doesn't apply when the victim was a minor and the perpetrator was in a position of trust. "I've been working with federal prosecutors for 3 years, building an airtight case against you." Carmen's face crumpled. "But I'm your mother. I was sick. The addiction made me do things. The addiction made you use drugs. Selling your daughter was a choice." I pulled out another folder, thicker than the first. This contained statements from Maya, Dante, and 7 other people who witnessed our arrangement. Rico's testimony from prison, where he confirms you initiated the deal. Financial records showing you continued using drugs while I was working off your debt. And my own testimony, detailing 2 years of forced labor. The restaurant suddenly felt too small, the air too thick. Carmen was hyperventilating. "What do you want from me?" she whispered. "I want you to understand something," I said, gathering my folders. "I could have you arrested right now. I have enough evidence to put you away for 25 to life." Hope flickered in her eyes. "But you won't." "I won't. Because I'm better than you are." I stood up, leaving money on the table for the meal she hadn't touched. "But if you ever, and I mean ever, try to contact me again, if you use drugs again, if you so much as think about getting back into dealing, I will destroy you completely. I have the power now, Carmen. Remember that." That was 5 years ago. Carmen disappeared from the city the same day we had lunch, and I haven't heard from her since. Word through various channels is that she's clean, working at a factory in another state, living quietly under an assumed name. Maybe she finally learned her lesson. Maybe she's just scared. I don't really care which. My life today looks nothing like the nightmare she sold me into. I'm a senior prosecutor specializing in human trafficking cases. I've helped put away dozens of people who exploit children and vulnerable adults. My office wall is covered with thank you letters from families I've helped seek justice. Last month, I testified before Congress about criminal justice reform, specifically about protecting minors from family exploitation. The laws I helped draft will prevent other mothers from selling their children to pay drug debts. I never married, never had children. Not because I can't trust people, I've learned to build healthy relationships, but because I chose to dedicate my life to protecting other people's children instead. Sometimes people ask if I ever forgive Carmen. The question assumes forgiveness is something she's entitled to, something I owe her because she gave birth to me. But forgiveness isn't about blood relation. It's about accountability and change. Carmen never actually apologized for selling me. She apologized for being addicted, for making bad choices, for disappointing me. But she never said the words, "I'm sorry I sold my daughter to drug dealers." Until she can acknowledge what she actually did, not the addiction that influenced it but the choice itself, there's nothing to forgive. My name is Emily Washington. I'm 33 years old and I turned my mother's betrayal into my life's purpose. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction. It's becoming everything they said you'd never be. The girl she sold became the woman who could destroy her completely but chose not to. That's real power. Final verdict time. Hero or villain? Did Emily do what we all wish we could do, or did they go nuclear when they should have tried diplomacy? I need to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if stories about people finally putting themselves first give you life, subscribe and ring that notification bell, because this is just the beginning.